My name's Rachel Proud and I am the co-founder of the Free Change Lifestyle. Today I'm going to be sharing with you how our family came to use doTERRA essential oils, what they mean to our family, how life is different since beginning our journey with doTERRA, and also how you can get your hands on some of these very powerful and potent essential oils for your own family. Now, life looked very different for us almost 10 years ago. My husband was in the police force and I was running a preschool from home. So things were incredibly busy. On top of running a preschool, I was also working as a photographer on the weekends and studying personal training. I had a young son who was about 3 years old, and life was just incredibly busy. I first heard of doTERRA essential oils through a family member and rolled my eyes. I thought there is no way that these could be anywhere near as fantastic as she was claiming them to be. So I kept on living the definition of insanity, and that was living an incredibly unhealthy lifestyle, being overworked, undersleeping, not getting enough sleep, not getting enough nourishment in my day-to-day life, and continuously catching every cold, every flu, every bug going around because I ran a preschool from home. So nothing was changing because I was changing nothing. And the reality was that this is the way that most of the families around me were living, and so it was normal. It wasn't until we had our second son, and he was always unwell, that I began to really start to feel hopeless and helpless and desperate, for want of a better word. There had to be another way. And doTERRA was that way. So I'll tell you a little bit about our very first experience with doTERRA essential oils and how every part of what I thought essential oils meant was challenged and shattered when I realized the doTERRA difference. So I first purchased, or actually I convinced my mum to purchase our very first collection because I didn't have the money to do so, and I also didn't see its value. I really didn't believe they would work. So upon having that kit, which was the Family Essentials collection, I placed it very beautifully on my cupboard, and it sat there for quite a while, looking gorgeous. Every time I walked past it, I admired the colours on the bottles, but again, I felt very intimidated and very unsure as how I was going to use these in my busy schedule, running from appointment to appointment, working every day, working all weekend. I just didn't feel like I had time to focus on something else, when, in all honesty, the only thing I should have started focusing on was my health and the health of my children. And thanks to doTERRA, I was able to eventually do that. So our dependency on medication was quite strong, and I guess when I look back over our last 10 years and the thousands of families we've helped, what we were doing is actually considered quite normal, which is terrifying. We had Panadol and Nurofen on repeat, just over and over and over. Temperatures, ear infections, tummy bugs, reflux, all of these things that our middle son was experiencing. Our only answer was Panadol, Nurofen, and antibiotics from the doctor, and that was basically our cycle. So I became very, very familiar at the chemist, and very, very familiar at calling in sick, having to rush to the doctors after work, and then eventually, and very sadly, those doctors' visits became hospital visits because our son was continuing to get more and more unwell, and the only answer was to continue giving him the same medication over and over again. And it was very clear, even to me at that time, it was also part of the reason he was becoming increasingly unwell. So one night, in my struggle, and as I said, my husband was in the police force, so he was always on shift work, and sleep was something we weren't getting enough of, and it was becoming less and less and less in our home. That was impacting our mental health and emotional well-being, our work, our cognitive function, just everything was coming undone, quite literally. And we looked like we had it all together. Mums get very, very good at, going through the motions of the day, putting on our social mask, smiling when we need to smile. But the wheels really come off when you're alone, feeling helpless, holding your child and feeling like you have no idea how to make them well again. So flash forward to another night. I knew it was another typical night. The sadness, the pain, the hot tummy, the hot back, the temperature started. And I was thinking, I can't even work out why this is happening. I can't work out what part of the cycle we're in, if it's basically another earache, is it another tummy ache, is it a virus, or are we just doing this night after night with no actual idea of what's setting this temperature off? Either way, I need to sort the temperature out, because we have to get through the night, we have to get some sleep, and we have to get to work tomorrow. And we had run out of Panadol. And I really, really think that was, or it is, I know it is, I don't think it is, that was the moment that our lives began to change. Because I looked up at the shelf through my tears and through his screams and cries, and I thought, I remember hearing something about peppermint essential oil, and maybe I should try that. But not before I rang my mum and said, do you have any Panadol? He has a temperature, do you have anything to help bring it down? And she said, no, we got rid of it all, we don't need it anymore. And my response was, are you crazy? I couldn't imagine life without that. But here I was, middle of the night, screaming Bub, and knowing I had to get his temperature to a safe level, because the outcome is having febrile convulsions and ending up in an ambulance and back at the hospital again. So I grabbed the bottle of peppermint oil. One of the things that I dislike the most, and upon reflection I realise is the exact opposite of healthcare, is when you're actually trying to administer peppermint and Panadol and Nurofen and things like that, medicine in general, to your child who doesn't want it, and you're literally holding them down, pinning them down and forcing this liquid into their mouth while they're screaming and gurgling and spitting, and you're caring for them. Like, I cried as I did that every single time. I'd beg my husband, can you give them the medicine tonight, because I just can't do it anymore. It just never felt right in every fibre of my being. And I didn't know there was another way. So we're in this night, he's crying, he's not well, he's doing the same thing, trying to tell me through his tears and through his pain that something's not right. And I grabbed the bottle of peppermint oil, I got a little dish, put a squirt of coconut oil in and put 3 drops of peppermint oil in and blended it around. I remember, place it on their feet and place it down their spine. And so I did. I went in, I sat on the end of his bed, and I tried to sing him a song. I tried to talk to him, and I was just rubbing the peppermint oil into his heels. And then slowly but surely he was, I guess, in a little bit of shock that he knew the drill, right? He knew what I'd normally do. So he started to calm and I started to calm, and then I rolled him over and I rubbed the peppermint down his spine. The skeptic in me went and got the digital thermometer that I have at my preschool, because I was like, if I'm going to do this, I actually really need to see this work. Otherwise I'm just going to flip out. And so I went and got the thermometer. Meanwhile, he'd actually calmed right down, and I'm thinking, there's no way. So I went and got the digital thermometer. I walked in, and it was about, by this point, half an hour to 40 minutes after the application. And I checked his thermometer and it had dropped half a degree. And I remember thinking, like, you have to be kidding me. This can't be real. And I sat on the floor of his bedroom and I cried for a very long time, because in that moment I realized that there is another way, and why hadn't I heard of this before? And how does every mum on earth not know about this? I actually went in and woke up my husband like an excited little kid on Christmas Eve and said, "Darling, guess what? And he's like, what's wrong? You know, thinking something's terribly wrong. And I said, it worked, the peppermint oil, it worked. And he's like, what? No way. And he got up and he came in, and Leon's sound asleep. And I said, look. And while Leon was sleeping, I just dipped my fingers in and just rubbed it on his heels again while he was asleep. So I was thinking, could this actually be that forevermore I never have to pin him down again to put medicine in his mouth? Could this be real? You know, I was just so blown away. And yeah, it actually was real. And 10 years later, I still have never had to pin him down and put any medication in his mouth. So that was my very first moment where it was like the sliding doors moment, and I saw, whoa, this is life-changing. This is really going to make me question a lot of the things I'd been taking as normal in my life as a new mum and as a preschool teacher and as a carer and lover of people and health in general. Maybe it wasn't that hard to change things. Maybe it wasn't going to be that difficult to start making some tiny little movements towards better health for our family. So that night, I ended up getting up every hour or so and just reapplying. His body returned to a safe temperature, and I wasn't afraid that it was going to spike and set him into any convulsions or anything, because obviously our body, when it has a temperature, is trying to fight something off or tell us something. And I've learned that that's a very natural part of the process. But we're taught to fear that as young mums, and all the TV ads. We're taught to fear a temperature, not take it as a messenger. So you can see that over time things have started to drop, and the penny has started to drop for me, and I'm able to help other people understand. So the next day I was able to wake up with a little bit more sleep, a little bit less mum guilt in my heart, and get through the day. And I thought, all right, okay. The real epiphany hit that normally by the afternoon and normally towards the evening I'd have this sinking feeling in my heart, this overwhelming, it's like I was going to battle every night. As a mum, I didn't know what was going to come, so I had like literally the bottles and the Panadol and the Nurofen lined up every night. And every morning I'd be like, whoa, I survived, you know. But this night I felt a sense of peace, because I was like, well, it actually wasn't so difficult to get through last night. And I started to, really look at, is this going to be something that I have to tell other people? Because other mums need to know about this. So peppermint was my very first moment as a mum. And naturally, because I ran a preschool, I was like, have you ever heard of this? Like, have you ever experienced it? And no one in our town really had. So it became really exciting, and I was able to talk about these experiences and celebrate this as a young mum. Clint was mind blown. So my husband was mind blown, and he saw the numbers drop, and he was pretty impressed with that. But he's a man, and he was a detective, and he was a very, very, very big skeptic of anything outside of the norm. So he took a little bit more convincing that aside from peppermint, all the other oils could be used as plant medicine. So I began experimenting. I began looking into the apps and the resources we had, joining more online communities, and researching a lot of the science behind plant medicine and essential oils, because there is a whole world of it. We're just not shown it on the surface of life. You actually have to dig a little to get to the crux and to get to the truth, because we are led to believe that there's only one way, right? There's only the big pharma route, the masking and band-aiding and getting rid of the temperature or getting rid of the outward symptom with a medication which causes ongoing side effects. So being able to actually remove the Panadol and the Nurofen from my son's life, I was able to then see and have the space and the capacity to look at other areas of his life and to start to question the other medication he was on for his reflux, and to wonder if that was the reason he was weeing blood and had blood in his nappies, or if his overdependency on having constant antibiotics was playing a role in that. And is there another alternative for that? Do we have to lean in so heavily, or could we find a more natural approach? So the very foundation of who I was beginning to crumble, because I had no choice, based on the experience and what I'd experienced with peppermint oil, to start questioning all other areas of our life. I'm his mum. I'm his greatest protector. And regardless of whether I got frowned upon or people thought I was a bit strange or a bit weird, I was not going to stop on the pursuit of finding a healthier alternative for him. And if we were lucky enough for it to keep getting better and better and better, I knew then I'd have a responsibility to help everyone at my preschool, to help everyone that I know to also find another way, because they were struggling too. So that was early on. We eventually ended up back in hospital for the blood in his urine, as I said. And because I'd had the experience with the peppermint, I was like, there has to be another way to focus on what's going on inside. What is his body trying to tell us? The nurse said to me, look, he's going to be on that medication for the rest of his life. He was on an adult dose of reflux medication as a 2-year-old, like incredibly scary that was our only option. And I said a lot, but I basically said, that's not going to happen. We're going to find another way. So we did. And so began the journey of going to a biochemist, looking into gut health, looking into things like candida, and choosing a very, very powerful blend by the name of Digestin as an alternative to apply to his tummy every nappy change. I stopped the medication, and I promised myself I'd stop it for a week, and I'd apply something different every nappy change. And I would see if it was going to offer some relief, if it was going to help him stop crying so much and stop being in so much pain that he'd lift his legs up and be in just such discomfort. I had to test it. I had to see, because I knew that peppermint did its job. So within, a very long story short, within 2 months, he was completely off all over-the-counter medication. I'm not saying over-the-counter medication is all completely evil and not needed in this world. I'm just saying, for our family, the dependency on such strong and harsh medication on his tiny tummy that was wreaking havoc on his health, it wasn't necessary. There was a gentler way. There was another way, and we had found it. So that same overwhelming responsibility that I felt when I was like, what? I can naturally help him through a temperature. I can naturally help him get rest. I can get rest. I can have peace of mind. It's safe and effective. If I then can't control it, we can lean in on the modern medicine and go to the hospital if we needed to. But that sense of empowerment that I felt as a mum now flowed into his gut health and his reflux and that diagnosis. Man, I had to tell the world. So it was sparking this fire in me and this light in me. And I, again, had only changed 2 things. I had only had 2 experiences. But I was like, this is 100% track record, like positive. This is working. This is changing me. This is making me question everything. And I couldn't undo that experience. And I didn't want to. Because for once in my life, I felt like a powerful mum. I felt like I was in control. I felt like when I picked up my phone and looked at my Essential Oils app, that I was able to at least influence and at least put in something good, even if we needed to lean in on something more synthetic and over the counter, which began less and less and less frequently to happen, to the point where in the last 10 years, we have as a family visited the doctor, who is one of my best friends, a handful of times. And I'm just so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for both worlds of medicine, but I'm mostly grateful for the plants because they have given us our life back. They've given us the freedom to travel this country, the peace of mind, that sense of empowerment 24 hours a day in our own home. And they've also brought an incredible abundance of like-minded people into our world and into our community. So the journey for us began on such a simple level. I just needed to find something that worked. I needed to get some sleep. I needed to help my child. And in having those epiphanies, I began to look around me and think, what else could I do? What else could I change? Now I started saving money because I wasn't buying bottles and bottles and bottles of things from the chemist anymore. I was buying 1 bottle of peppermint oil, which has approximately 280 to 290 drops in it. That's 290 or times. I could apply that. That's great value for money. So all of the stereotypes around, health being too expensive or doTERRA essential oils being too expensive is one of the greatest cop-outs of all time, because it's what you eliminate that saves your health and allows you to retain your wealth, to live more simply, to save money, to make your products from home. They're not too expensive. There is no greater investment than your health and your family's health. So the preschool had a diffuser, and the diffuser was going always, of course, with permission from the families. But I began to look at different blends that came in that first collection. So I've mentioned peppermint oil, and I've mentioned Digest-Zen, also known as Zengest here in Australia. And then I began thinking, well, what about the seasons of sickness? What about the things they're always catching? What about the bugs? I run a preschool, for goodness sake. So what about how can we protect our home and our environment and decrease the amount of times that we're actually getting unwell? Insert On Guard Immune Blend. So I'd have that going in the diffuser almost on rotation, especially during the winter season and the cooler seasons, to protect the environment to offer a sense aromatically of safety and security, but also knowing that the mist and the organisms of that essential oil are landing topically all around the preschool, on the surfaces of the preschool and into the air. So it was an incredibly empowering visual aid. It was incredibly empowering aromatic experience, and also using the oil in a glass spray bottle with some vinegar and as a natural cleaner in the environment saved me a ton of money. I'd add oils like lemon essential oil or wild orange essential oil to it, and I had already begun the low tox lifestyle journey just by investing in this one kit. It was pretty incredible, and it happened ever so gradually, but I began to have more confidence in this journey, along this journey. So the diffuser was always going. We'd rotate between On Guard and Easy Air Respiratory Blend. So think Vicks, but without all the nasties. It's a blend that opens your airways and improves your respiratory function. And we had it going, like I said, in alternate times. I'd often have On Guard going in the morning and Easy Air on towards the middle of the day and the rest time. Or I'd allow the children to select an oil that brings calming to them, and they always lent towards lavender essential oil from that collection. So it began to just be this really positive and uplifting tool in our preschool environment. And again, tox-free and safe. So I was so excited to think that my children are participating in this and making healthier choices, and I was able to influence the children and the families of the centre to say, hey, like, are you aware that this exists? It was really, really powerful. So that was sort of like the early days and the leaning into a world I never thought I had the time and the capacity to bother looking into. It was just that I had to surrender. And I had to surrender because what the system was offering me by the way of medication, by the way of options for my son, was the very thing causing him to become increasingly unwell. So his greatest protector, his greatest force of hope in this world, I was able to step forward and actually fulfill that role. And I'm so proud of that. So this sort of roll-on effect and this natural sharing and this natural curiosity expanded and expanded and expanded. All the while, I have my darling husband. I'm sort of setting up our new routine for him, right? I'm setting up this new way of life, and I'm sort of just hoping that one day his guard would drop and he'd embrace it a little bit more wholeheartedly. Peppermint he was sold on, digestion he was sold on, but you know, it was a little bit too alternative for him in the early days, but he did trust me. So I began to make rollers for our family, and I'd say, right, we're going to live proactively. I'm not going to wait around to get sick, to catch things, I know the drill. I know how this works each and every season, so I'm going to get ahead of it. So that's sort of where my energy lifted, my sense of empowerment and supermum lifted, and I began making rollers to proactively take a proactive approach to our family's health. So this meant making a roller for my son's ears. I made a roller to apply to his ears on the daily, and especially before and after going and participating in indoor swimming in those heated pools with all the yuckies. And every mum there is like, does your kid get ear infections? Yes. Well, I wasn't going to buy into that anymore, so I began saying, right, what can I do about this? So we had the ear roller blend, which was super effective, so much so he actually got taken off the waiting list for his grommets because he no longer got enough ear infections to warrant being on the list. That was an interesting conversation with a specialist. But I began to make a blend, a roller bottle blend with On Guard in it to apply to their heels every morning before they put their socks on. So when Dad was dressing them, I was like, roll it on their heels, or they could roll it on their heels, put your socks on, and off you go. And again at night before they went to sleep. So getting that on guard onto their bodies, and knowing that we're getting ahead of any nasties. I began to make a blend for their respiratory system. So if we had people around us with a little cough or a little niggle, I already had diluted the Easy Air and a little bit of lemon and tea tree, and they'd apply that and roll it on their chest. What happened was, because I made it so simple, my husband was able to participate in the application and to begin to feel that very same sense of empowerment and that very same sense of hope that I was able to experience as a mum. He began to feel that as a dad. He began to see that, participating proactively in your own healthcare feels good. It feels uplifting. You feel more confident. And it was in those daily routines that I had set up around our family. They were so simple, so convenient, that why wouldn't you apply them? So it just became a more natural part of our world. I remember one of the huge moments was when near our preschool we had this big sort of swamp, this horrible, it was just growing mosquitoes, and a lot of the kids in our centre were actually allergic to them. So there became this big cycle of Aerogard, like being sprayed on the children. And then as a result of that, the asthmatic children were all upset, and the ones with sinuses were all upset. But what do? Do you allow them to be bitten? No, because you need the spray, right? And then once you've sprayed it, the toxins are gone into their skin and into their respiratory system, so their cough starts, and their cough gets up more and more aggravated, and then they have an asthma attack, and it's like, wow, this is just out of control. Then their sinuses play up, sinus infection, and so the cycle continues. So was there another way? And then that's how my mind began to work. Wait, there's got to be something for this too. Let me put my witchy hat on and let me work this out. So TerraShield is a natural repellent blend. It is the repellent blend of essential oils, and it didn't come in our original kit, so I jumped on and bought that. And I was like, all right, let's see how this goes. So I was diffusing it in the preschool environment. I was on my own children, diluting it in coconut oil and rubbing it on them, and just seeing if they got bitten while using the more natural approach. And they weren't. And I was like, oh, no way. Like, I don't even know why at this point. I actually was still surprised, but I was still surprised. And I'm thinking, you have to be kidding. So I can apply this natural product, which inevitably would then stop the process of this cycle of spraying something toxic, upsetting their respiratory system, and then going on to have their allergies and all that set off, and so on and so forth. Not to mention the physical bite, where they'd actually need antihistamines to settle down the bites if they got bitten. I was just completely and utterly sold. And so, of course, telling everyone, hey, wait, we have another way. There's another way here. And of course, most of the parents were like, yes, like, get me some, that's fine, let's apply that instead. But mostly I was using my own children as the lab rats of my experiments, because I needed to see it work. And I needed to see it work so I could tell my husband, and I needed him to see it work. So it sunk into his heart and soul that I wasn't just making this up. So the Mozzie bites, the TerraShield worked for the Mozzie bites, but also the children that actually were allergic to Mozzie bites, and they get those big welts on their arms, we could apply lavender essential oil directly to that as a natural alternative to an antihistamine. And that was just next level. Literally seeing these angry red bites on their arms slowly settle down naturally. I was like, I didn't have Facebook then. Like, I sound really old, but I didn't have any of these tools to jump on and go live and to tell the world. All I had was just me in the moment going, no way. Like, and then the parents would turn up to pick up their kids, and I'd just tell them, did you know this is what happened? So at every point I was just, wow, this is happening. So when it came to things like daily occurrences that would set off another path of just dependency on these heavy things, we had already sort of put a little stopper in and something else in. So we were able to use TerraShield, able to use lavender if they got bitten, and stopped the need for over-the-counter antihistamines in the moment. We'd also stopped the ongoing flow of spraying all these toxic chemicals to stop the mosquitoes, and instead, if they were bitten, apply the natural antihistamine, and there was no need for the respiratory upheaval and the asthma and the ongoing sinus problems from all of the toxins. It was amazing. It is amazing till this day. So, if any of the children were experiencing respiratory discomfort or having an asthmatic reaction, one family in particular started to wonder if easy air would help. The child had a puffer, actually had 2 different kinds. We had an asthma plan in place, and I was like, now we're getting into the nitty gritty. At that time, I didn't have a child with asthma. I certainly don't recommend mucking around. I'm a very, very, very huge lover of modern medicine and in its acute care and accident, all of that. Fantastic. But what I was seeing was the ways that we could actually add a little hope, add a little health in, and be proactive so much in the natural world that we didn't have to rely on that so much. And we could have our freedom back, we could have our health back. And so I made up a little blend of easy air for this family whose son just went on this cycle every year of asthma, worse, croup, hospital, asthma, worse, croup, hospital. And it was like, could we influence that? Could we make life a little bit easier for them too? Let's try. So this is how our essential oils journey just blew up, and just, let's try. I'm not sure, let's give that a go. It was just being present and actively seeking another solution time and time again, having the capacity, having the drive to go, all right, I've got this oil here, I'm going to try. So I made up a blend for her of just easy air and in coconut oil, and I said, okay, what do you normally do in the morning? She said, I normally have his preventative and this and that, whatever. I said, what do you feel like? What is your intuition telling you? And she said, I might apply the oils before I give him the puffer and see if we can elongate the time between. So see if he can go without his puffer a little bit more. So when he really needs it, it's really effective. And I was like, great idea, great plan. See, because this is the mum choosing something new for her child, not me doing that for her. So this is me going, here's your power. How can you use that to change the course of your child's life and health? Very long story short, till this day, nearly 10 years later, that oil is still very frequently used in their home. The blend that I made her to help be more proactive around croup saved her family from needing to go on that regular hospital visit every year and rely a lot less on those steroids that her son was having very regularly during those seasons. I just, again, was like, whoa, I did not expect that. That is impressive. Again, super stoked with the results. I just couldn't believe that the whole world didn't know about this. Oh, it just blows my mind. So that was another example. Around that time, so we'd been using them for, a bit over a year, more into 2 years, and they were in our lives. You know, I became known as, you know, a little bit weirder every day. Oh, have you got your oils today? Oh, Rachel, have an oil for that. And I was like, yeah, rightio, guys. That's fine, because yous all have them too. I'm just the one openly being the oily girl, so it was actually quite ironic. A lot of the husbands that would like make these remarks, their wives were like obsessed with oils, but yeah, isn't it ironic? So I took that as a compliment, you know, and I am so proud of the fact that anything new, it's not so new. We talk about oils as if, and plants as medicine as if it's this brand new thing. It's actually all that ever was before Big Pharma took over. We're just going back to our roots, and we're going back to actually creating, actively participating in our health and well-being from the ground up, from a grassroots level. Very foreign, because it's not on TV, and you know, some people just live and die by the TV and its rules. That's not us. So, as we progressed, my darling husband got man flu, and boy oh boy, man flu, yeah, it's up there with, you know, completely just the world stops, right? So I thought I'd offer him oils once, and he's like, no, I'm good. I was like, okay, no worries. So he spent a day in bed, and he had it all: the sweats, the cough, the lethargic, the headaches. And I thought, you know, we've been doing this drill long enough. He'd seen me go through getting that same flu that year, nipping it in the bud by using our immune bomb blend, and actively not being so hit by it, because we'd lifted our internal health to a level where our body was able to move through it much quicker. And I thought, if he wants them, he'll ask. So I was sort of in this little bit of a standoff, where if it was one of the kids that got hit that hard, I would have gone and applied the oils and been doing it on the hour. And you know, our immune bomb blend is on guard, frankincense, lemon, tea tree, and oregano, diluted heavily, meaning you pop a drop of each and then dilute it in at least 2 teaspoons of of coconut oil, and applying that down their spine and applying it on their heels every hour or so to help their body through. I didn't do that for him, because I was like, I'll let him decide what he wants to do. If he wants me to go to the chemist and get all these cold and flu things, so be it. I'll go do that for him. I was sort of a bit tired of constantly trying to make this happen. Little did I know that he jumped up, he went and got an empty veggie cap, and he filled it with the flu bomb remedies, and he chose, like I choose, you don't have to, but to ingest the essential oils. And he had made a blend for himself on his chest and put himself back to bed. And his words, and he'll share this story, but he sweated it out. He was back at work the very next day. And that was his I am completely sold moment. And I'm so glad that I allowed him to have that. Maybe I was being a little bit of a bitch, but I couldn't take that from him. That moment was his. And he had to make that decision for himself. And that's very much the attitude that I've taken to this whole journey over these last 10 years. You know, there's a lot of families in need. There's a lot of families on their knees crying. A lot of mums feeling so helpless, so sick and tired of the cycle. Literally can't afford now to go to the doctors and pay $80 to $90 per session to be told exactly the same thing by their GP, that they have no other choice but to keep doing what they're doing, living the definition of insanity that I lived for so many years. But until they're ready to make that decision for themselves, you know, we just have to be patient. And what I'm noticing more and more, especially now in the world we live in, is that mums are ready and dads are fed up. And even if their skeptic level is up here, they're like us. They surrender. They're like, what have you got? let's give it a shot. Let's see how this works. And they're slowly but surely having those same epiphanies that I had early on. No way, I can't believe this worked. You're kidding. And there's a lot of closet oil users, and I love using that term. They're in the background, they're doing the oils, they're applying the things because they're literally having this veil lifted, like, I could have been doing this all along. I know that feeling. That's why I was crying on the floor of my son's bedroom. I just couldn't believe this was possible. And you won't believe it's possible until you experience it for yourself, until you see the results yourself. So that is why essential oils are here to stay. That is why doTERRA is here to stay. They've been in Australia for 10 years now. Their efforts around the globe to ensure that from the ground up, behind the bottle, in the harvesting and the sourcing of the most pure and potent essential oils on the planet, it is good. People are looked after. The planet is looked after. The farmers are looked after. The co-impact sourcing that they've got set up around the globe is phenomenal. And it's part of the very reason that when Clint finally had that experience for himself, he came along to one of our conventions and he got to sit and look at this big picture. He got to listen to the doctors and the scientists talk about these oils and why they're different from the little horrible smelling bottles in the $2 shop. He got to understand that there's been zero regulatory body overseeing the term essential oils forever. Anyone could say that they had pure essential oils and be sold as that. It's just out of this world. He got to understand why doTERRA created the CTPG grade testing. So it's a bar that every essential oils company has to adhere to make sure they really are pure. They're not adulterated. There's no synthetics added. So they are just as they sprouted from the earth. They are in their purest state when they land in those bottles and into our homes and applied to our children. He got to experience firsthand, literally a few years in, went to Guatemala on a co-impact sourcing trip and learned all about the cardamom that we source from Guatemala and help dig and install water pipes through a village, meet the farmers that grow and harvest cardamom for us, which is a huge part of the Easy Air blend that helps our son's respiratory system. It's like doTERRA is here, and it is here to heal the world, but from a grassroots level, from the ground up. First, by giving us, those mums and dads and individuals, hope, healing in our own personal world, where we then develop this time to actually look around our environment and start to go, hang on a minute, what's in that? What's that filled with? What's that going to cause? What side effects am I going to get if I choose that as opposed to that? So all of a sudden we start to emancipate ourselves from our sick story, our I'm too tired, I'm too sick, I don't have time to be well. Then we're looking around our environment and shifting our lifestyle, and we're going, wow, I could be making a better choice here. Then kicks in incredible amounts of personal development and self-development, where you start to question deeper those ingrained stereotypes, those ingrained behaviors that society expects of us. Why do we make fun of people that are on a health journey? Why do we call organic food? Isn't it just food? What's the other food? You sound crazy, but it's like when you have the capacity that doTERRA gives you in time, your cognitive functions, your feelings of, wow, I am in control, your strength, your hope, you start to look at the world differently. Then you go, well, I can play a part in this bigger picture. I have a responsibility to tell everyone at my preschool what I'm going through and what's working for me. Then I have a responsibility to tell everyone in my community, hey, this is possible. Did you know this is harming us? Did you know this is working for us? And if you would like to participate on that journey, here's how. It's a responsibility because us as individual people, we are the power. There's this hierarchy in the world that really make the decisions, that throw out what the social norms are, and it's the everyday people that suffer. We need to look out for one another, and that's what doTERRA allowed me the space and time to do. So within a few years, I had gone from running a preschool, a photography business and studying personal training to going, do you know what? I'm going to do this full time. I get so much joy out of helping people through their darkness back into their light. I am not the guru, I am not the savior, I'm certainly not diagnosed, curing and all of that prescribing. I'm just showing them my story and saying, I wonder what's possible for you. And it invokes something in them. They say, well, hang on, my child had that, or I've been going through that too. I wonder if, and we mirror each other and we grow. So then you look at your purpose and your mission and your legacy, and it became very clear very quickly that I had a responsibility for the whole planet. And I know that sounds egotistical and crazy, but what about the next generation? If we keep going in the direction we're going, where everything is masked, literally, all of our food comes from a packet, all of our medicine comes from some person that has all the answers in a white lab coat that never, ever, ever, ever asks you holistic questions, we're getting sicker, more tired, more locked indoors, more digitalized, more robotic than ever before. More unhappy, more mental health breakdowns, more sadness, more distraction. It doesn't have to be that way. And doTERRA reminded me of that 10 years ago. So I haven't even touched on the mental health journey of my husband. I believe that he will do that, and that's his story to tell. But when you work as a detective in the police force, then in the child abuse squad, I think PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is inevitable, sadly. And there is a huge stigma around that in the police force and in general, in life in general, that needs addressing. But these essential oils, because of the capacity we had to choose better physically and get on top of our physical health, we were able then to learn about the power of smell and about the way that we could participate proactively in supporting our body and our heart and our mind to produce the chemical reactions of confidence, hope, grounding, balance, of all of these receptors that we could spark through the power of smell. And so when it became time for the inevitable traumatic scenes, traumatic cases and things like that, my husband began to lean in on aromatically anchoring some more positive reactions to smells to move through these big emotions and back into a state of not fight or flight, of harmony. The most opposite thing on the planet that you would think a detective would do, but he took that on because he is living proof of the power of that. So again, once you have the capacity to think clearly, to see results physically, to look around and question your environment, and to question everything we've ever been taught and told as normal, you move through personal development and you say, yeah, wow, I'm responsible for my own health, no one else is, and watch me. I'm going to do this, I'm going to take this on, I'm going to lean in, I'm going to be accountable, I'm going to learn from my mistakes. You then have the capacity to say, wow, I can influence how I feel, I can influence my mood, I can actually be kind of like magic, put a diffuser on and influence the mood and the emotions of my whole home based on the science of smell. Pretty powerful stuff. So my responsibility to the planet is to raise empowered children. We have 3 boys now. 3 boys, our 3rd boy is 6 years old currently, and he has never ever known anything but the power of plant medicine in his life, and it is incredible. His knowledge, the way he knows how to lean on essential oils, his routine that he's created throughout his day, that's what I want for every child on earth. Not because I want to disregard a positive relationship with any GP or a positive relationship with the medical system. No, I want to show them that first and foremost their health is their responsibility. What they eat, what they consume, what they apply, what they take is their responsibility. And if there becomes a time where we need to lean into the modern medicine system, it will work for them because they're not over dependent on it. And I am proud of the way that they see the world, of the capacity they have to question the status quo, to question, is this just what we're accepting as normal? Or is it actually normal? Is there another way? Is there something else I can be doing? So these are the kinds of things that I believe every family deserves. These are the kinds of thoughts. This is the capacity to think, the capacity to have space for and to prioritize health. I believe every family deserves. But do we all have it? Not really. Why? Because we're usually running from job to job. We're running from appointment to appointment, after school appointment to appointment, and literally running through life and doing the very best we can to keep our shit together. And that is the truth. And how do I know? Because that was once me. And I did not like the person I was when I put my head on the pillow at night. I did not like the feeling of guilt, of mum guilt, of absolute helplessness, fear, terrified of the next night because I didn't know what it was going to bring health-wise. You can't live your best life if you have no health. And you can't live it if you have no hope. And doTERRA returned and restored our health and our hope. And that's what we want for everyone on this planet. We have a huge team here in Australia and New Zealand, and we are branching out globally. doTERRA is available on the ground in most countries around this world. We educate our team, and we have private online forums where everyone is welcome. We ask questions, we share our wins, we share what's working for our children, we support one another. We don't cast judgment on who's healthier than who. We know that no one is perfect. We know that everyone's version of balance is different, and we welcome that because we, the people, are the only ones that are there for each other at the end of the day. So if you've been wondering why doTERRA, why is it different? Why are there millions of crazy men and women running around talking about these little brown bottles? I hope that by my story and by me sharing a little bit of the evolution of our journey has helped you understand that there is so much beauty to it. And it is truly hard to capture in a very short video, in a very short post. When I look around now, at this point, upon reflection and looking back at the thousands of micro moments of me saying, would you like to hear what works for our family? I have had many no's. I've had so many people say, yeah, nah, thanks, mate. I'm good. I said that for so long. Yeah, nah, you're crazy. Nah, I'm all right. I don't need what you have. But for every no, I keep going. Because when someone says, yes, I would love to, thank you, please give me a sample, please drop something off, I know their life is about to change forever. And that is what keeps me going. That is why I choose to do this full time and have done it for the last 10 years, and why I'll never stop. That is where the generational shift will happen. It's where we change the world, because of us sharing our hope, other families have hope, and so on, and the ripple continues. So if you've been thinking about essential oils, wondering where they will fit into your life, I don't have time, I'm not healthy enough, I don't have the money, all of the excuses, I challenge you. Pick the most painful part of your life right now. For us, it was the bloody Panadol cycle, the temperature. Pick the most painful part. Think about how your life would be different if you could move through that a lot easier, simpler, more effective, safely, naturally. How would your life be different? How would your sleep be different? How would your finances be different? How would your relationship with your child be different? And then ask the person who's been hinting at you for a sample of an essential oil that will help with that. And if you don't have a person, reach out to ask us, and we will get a bottle in front of you so you can join us on this journey of unbecoming everything the world told you had to be and put up with and tolerate, and life is horrible and life is hard and you aren't in control of your body and you aren't in control of your emotions and you just have to suck it up. Everything the world told you was normal is not normal. And we are here for you, and we're here to show you another way. So reach out, pop a comment below, jump on our website and send us an inquiry, or better still, jump on our website and become a wholesale customer from anywhere around the world. A wholesale customer with doTERRA gets 25% off the recommended retail price. You get your very own private online shopping experience through your own login. You get all of the education and support online that is at your own pace. Opt in, opt out, doesn't matter. You can download support apps. You'll be welcomed into our private groups. This is a choose your own adventure. You are not locked in financially to any agreements. You are not locked into any amount of monthly spending. You can choose into the incredible loyalty rewards program, and I'll do another video on that soon. It is where you take your power back. And I cannot even tell you what that has done for our family. But after about 4.5, 5 years, I was able to retire my husband from the police force, and he was able to become a father full-time at home, running our free change business alongside of me, and we've been traveling this country for 6 years. It has been life-changing. Not everyone that comes to doTERRA chooses to share doTERRA. You don't have to. But everyone that comes to doTERRA has their life and their health changed forever, and you're welcomed into our family. So I hope you enjoyed that. Jump on our website, begin your own wellness journey, and of course reach out if you have any questions at all. Take your power back.